All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to It's Definitely Not a Podcast, where we listen to people's stories because we think everyone has a story to tell. We are here with my guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Gray. We are coworkers, and I'm here to shoot the shit with you for about an hour.
Yep.
Uh,
we
so,
I did not do any preparation for this episode.
uh-huh.
Like I always said I was going to, and then yesterday I was like, "All right, are you ready to record?"
And I was like, fuck, I guess.
And then literally we worked together today.
Mhm.
Um, I was like, "Oh, I'll prepare, while we work together because I know it's not going to be a busy day." I did not do that at
Yeah.
all. Even when I went home, I was like, "Okay, I'll do it when I go home." Did not do it. But that's okay because I have a lot of just really dumb but interesting games like this where I just read a card and then we can go through those if we run out of conversation points. I don't know that we're going to. I feel like
Mhm.
we have interesting shit to say all the time.
Yeah, we usually, like, our conversations usually go pretty well.
Yeah, I would say so.
So, any opening
So,
questions, Miss Host?
I don't know about opening questions. I think at least I, would love to hear more about your life, how you grew up and how that kind of, or whatever it is you want to talk about, shaped you into who you are.
In terms of my kind of upbringing, so I'm from Latvia. I was born in Riga, the capital city. It's a Latvia is a small Baltic country close to Russia. It used to be in the Soviet Union. I lived there till I was about 8, and then we moved to California for my dad's work. He works in tech. He's a programmer, and because of that, we moved around a lot in the U.S. So lived in like Orange County, then lived in Bay Area in California, then we moved to Florida, then Texas, and now I'm here. Yep.
Wow. I didn't realize that you lived in California because I just heard Florida when we were talking in the car. And I just thought, okay, that's crazy that you lived in Florida from
um,
Europe, right?
yeah, yeah. Which I mean, South Florida is a very popular place for people from like Russia and Latvia. I think they flock to it just because it's warm and there's beaches and it's sunny. There's a very big Russian community in Miami. Like there's a neighborhood called Sunny Isles, where you can find Russian bars, shops, hairdressers, everybody. You basically, if you live there, you don't actually need to know how to speak English because everything you could need, you can find a Russian person for it.
I'm actually really surprised. But I think that's just kind of the culture of Miami is just having everything.
Mm.
And when I lived in Florida, I was always like keeping Miami at an arm's length because people would go there on spring break. And I think people just go to Florida year round because it's Disney World. It's a lot of touristy places, especially Miami. And yeah, I don't want to go there because I don't like driving in places like that.
Yeah, no, I lived in Boca Raton, which is kind of like it's kind of like a richer community. But I didn't live in like the rich parts of it.
Yeah.
And it's about like an hour away from Miami. And like, yeah, I didn't go there unless I had to, unless I was visiting my aunt who lived there. Because that was the reason why we moved to Florida is because we had like some family there.
Right. So, are there any other things in your life you want to, I guess, talk about?
Um, hmm. I guess we can briefly talk about like what we talked in the car. That I am a trans guy. Um, and that's been an interesting experience. Do you have any questions about that? Because there's a lot to talk about there, and I'm wondering if there's any
I
like specific things that you would want to know.
I personally don't because I
Mhm.
just wasn't really that curious. I'm like, okay, I just work with this guy. I don't know. Like,
Which is honestly how I ideally present myself in general. Is just I'm just some guy, and unless I tell you, you don't really know anything.
yeah.
Which is the way I prefer to keep it because early on in transitioning, passing was such like a struggle in general that like now that I'm to the point where like I can just kind of lie low. It's quite nice.
Yeah, I believe it. I just think there's a lot more interesting things about you than that aspect of you.
And that's awesome. I like strive to be I think I would be very upset if the most interesting thing about me was the fact that I'm trans.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy that you don't think so.
I mean, we talk about literally anything else.
Yeah.
Like today, we're talking about music and how important physical media is.
Hmm.
And I actually did want to talk about it because I do think it's really important. And then it just brought up a lot of other things like AI and kind of everyone's feelings around it and just kind of this shift that we have, I think, in culture in general, but just as like a society of like what does this mean for all of us now that it's here?
Hmm. I don't know again, you bring up like such big topics that I'm like, fuck, what do I like grab onto here? Because there's a lot.
There is a lot.
Um, yeah, I mean, about what you just said, I think that as a kind of culture, especially, well, I think this is happening in some form all across the world, is that we are, but more so in America, or at least it's more visible in America, in my opinion, is that we are continuously outsourcing more and more and more things to the point where, like, in my opinion, AI is outsourcing your own ability to think, which is why I'm so against AI in general, is because one, it's not particularly useful in my opinion because it makes so many mistakes. And two, even if like there is some use cases of like you can use it as a jumping off point for other ideas. But too many people don't use it that way. They just use it to do the thing for them and that's it. And it's like if you can't even think without a machine, then what are you? You know?
Do you think there's nuance to it? Because I feel like AI can be used as a tool, but if you're using it as like a point of ideas, like you said, like if the idea doesn't originate with you and you use AI instead, then it kind of takes the entire art out of whatever it is that you're doing, you know?
Yeah. And a thing about me is that I'll find nuance in anything. So and maybe that's why we have such good conversations is
Mhm.
because I always think that there's a middle ground and the middle ground is always worth exploring. Yeah, I mean AI can absolutely be a tool. Also, when we talk about AI right now, we're talking about generative AI. AI that you tell it what to do and it spits shit back out at you. But AI has a lot of more useful use cases. Like there's researchers using it to detect cancer earlier in the stages of development. And AI is really good at that because AI, what at its core, is really good at finding patterns. Um, and so, in terms of like research purposes, like some industrial applications, it's awesome. I mostly have, and I think there's very little nuance in using it in a generative AI context. Because, like, yeah, if you need to write an email and you have no idea how to start the email, then you can just put in the prompt into like ChatGPT and then it can spit something back out at you. And you can work off of that and workshop it into something usable. I think that's the use case. I,
Uh, where's the line though where it's, you know, like yours to theirs, if that makes sense?
well, that's not really a question
Mhm.
with a very clear answer.
That's true. I don't think there's a clear solution either, you know.
Yeah.
It still is very new and there's no signs of slowing down. And I think, I mean, I don't really know if there is a right way to feel about it. I don't know how I fully feel about it. I just don't love the idea of using that as a crutch, right?
Yeah, and like what I was talking to you about earlier when we had this conversation is that I think the line is where you can still write that email, write that essay, write that whatever without it. Like, it's fine to use it as a tool to help you if you get stuck somewhere, but if you are completely dependent on it and you can't write anything without its help, then that's the point where you really start need to reconsidering what the fuck you're doing and like trying to actually improve your own skills and your own thinking. Because like if you become dependent on this thing and then they decide to charge you $100 a month for it and you can't pay that, then you're screwed, you
Mhm,
know? Like and you have to figure something else out anyway or cough up the $100.
mhm. And there are a lot of points I'm just thinking in my head of where this could go because it is still a very broad topic as well.
Mhm. I mean, I do think that that's like a more general kind of shift that we're witnessing right now with
Mhm,
like streaming, like with movies, with music, with everything that like even like services like DoorDash, for example, like and like ordering grocery delivery. Y- those things have more nuance to them because there is a use case for like, mm, for example, people with disabilities. That could be very, very helpful for them. And I don't think that's part of the reason why I'm an advocate for one, always have a backup plan. Like, do not let yourself get completely reliant on these services because we see the business strategy in the past few years with everything. Like, it happened with Uber, it happened with DoorDash, it happens with every startup that is quote unquote disruptive. Um, they start with a very lucrative offer to attract as many people as possible. And then once people are dependent on them, then they jack the prices up. And lots of people have gotten so used to it that they just have no choice but to pay begrudgingly.
mhm.
And it doesn't benefit anybody except for the CEOs of those companies.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about subscription services
Oh, yeah.
in general. I know that you just quit your Spotify Premium.
hmm
I honestly should because they just did a price increase, and I'm like,
hmm
dog, what do you mean like an ultra tier like premium?
Yeah.
Because I already have premium with no ads, and I don't want to pay like $4 more a month
Yep.
to
Yep.
get the exact same thing that I have right now.
hmm Yeah. I mean, that was part of the thing that, like, yeah, I saw them increase the price and I was like, that's it, I'm out. You know, this is my line of tolerance is like, it's not going to get any cheaper. And Spotify already has a history of taking down songs by artists, like, for various issues of like copyright strikes or whatever. Like, and if you don't listen to music on any other platform, if that was a song you really liked and they take it off the platform, that's it, you're done. Like, too bad, go listen to other music and keep paying us the like $15 a month. And yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I get it. I'll go back to the point I brought up earlier. My friend, she basically managed this band for a little bit. They were really small, but they had an EP, I think, that released. It was a couple songs, and I loved the songs, but for whatever reason that it was, the band broke up. They took all their songs off their platforms. I couldn't get it on SoundCloud. I couldn't get it on Spotify. I couldn't get it on anything. And it is like you said, just having artists you really like, and then all of a sudden they're just taken off the platform.
hmm Yeah, and I've also run into stuff of like, there's some music that just can't be put on Spotify because it's like a mixtape of like two other popular artists and like, nobody's label is going to allow that on a platform like Spotify. And I do think that that partly stifles people's kind of expression and creativity because there's only like it has to be original, it can't be like it can't cross certain lines, whatever. And like I think that detracts from it.
Yeah, I don't really know. I I feel like I mean I'm not that educated in music. I feel like there's kind of a line with it, when artists sample other artists' music and that's allowed, or if it's like sampled but then after it initially comes out, then the artist lawyers you know, start a lawsuit being like, "Hey, you can't use this sample without our permission." I feel like there's a lot of nuance there. We've said that a lot, but
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you that there is like, and there's also the whole discussion about like DJs because they use shit tons of samples and remix songs, and it's like, well, where's the kind of how much change equals something new, basically. And the easiest way to kind of, I think, get around that discussion is for people to just put out their music independently, like on Bandcamp or something like that, and then people just have the option to directly pay the artist. And if it's successful, it's successful. If not, then no.
Yeah, I agree. This is why I need to bring back an iPod.
Hmm.
Or I guess Apple should bring back another iPod.
Yeah, I do think that because I think there's a growing kind of counterculture
Mhm.
in our generation of people kind of embracing tech minimalism, which is awesome to see because people see how much like there's been a lot of talk lately about like screen time addictions and like phone addictions and all that stuff, but not in like the boomer way, like it's that damn phone, but like genuinely. And I we have talked about this before, and I still maintain this viewpoint that using social media can be very exploitative for a lot of people, especially for their mental health. Now, it doesn't have to be 100% of the time. Obviously, people use social media and are happy with it, and that's awesome. But because of the way that algorithms are set up to maximize engagement time and the easiest emotion to evoke to keep them on their platform is anger and outrage. Um, like that just leads to so many negative spirals um, that there's kind of a growing recognition among younger people of like this isn't good. So there's a lot of people like moving away from it, and like the kind of iPod resurgence is part of that because a lot of people use their phones for music, and so an easy way to get yourself to not look at your phone that much, just outsource the music basically to a separate device. And a lot of people are also buying like dumb phones, or what's called a dumb phone in comparison to a smartphone, like genuine flip phones that people just put a new SIM card into and it works.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things people are bringing back, like
Uh-huh.
vinyl, CDs. I mean, for me personally, it's DVDs and if I can, Blu-ray, so then
Mm-hmm.
I can get like the best, you know, I guess viewing experience is just the right word for it. For me, another thing, like back to the streaming, is that I don't want anything to be altered. And I'll bring up this story that I told you before of Lilo and Stitch. I wanted to watch that because the live action movie is coming out soon. And I love the original one. But there's a scene in that movie where Lilo goes into like the washing machine to hide from her sister. And a lot of kids were doing that in real life. And, very unfortunate shit happens. So Disney's
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we're going to change this. So
Mm-hmm.
she's just like hiding under a table, basically. And I don't like that they are transforming that, like changing the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I get the reason why they're doing it, but I also think I just don't like the idea of them changing the original
Mm-hmm.
movie at all. And there's still a lot of other harmful movies that are still on the platform, like Pocahontas, not portraying the actors or the Native Americans in the correct way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I just don't want them to change that. And I want to own a physical copy of the movies I watch because, I don't want like my perception of reality to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a very valid point of like if they can change that one scene, then like they can change practically anything,
Mhm.
you know? And I do think it's also an important tool of like to hold a company like accountable. You know, if they put out some shit that's like not good, or like if they fuck up in some way and then they change it really quick, like it's important to still have like the original just to remind them of that, I guess, to make sure that they don't repeat that mistake. Yeah, I agree with you there.
I think, in all fairness, though, I don't know where that line is exactly. Because then you have shows like Game of Thrones where they just famously have like the Starbucks cups in the shots, and they like
Do they really?
whatever, yeah, whatever person like forgot to like take out the shot or
Uh
the cup
huh.
in the scene. But what they did is like if you watch it on Max,
Uh huh.
right? they digitally removed all those cups. And
Mhm.
I think, like, I get why they did that, but at the same time, I think it's just a funny thing to watch, like, the past and be like, "Hey, look at these things that they forgot to take out."
That's true. And I think that there could be a case for both sides of like one, it does absolutely break the immersion if you see a fucking Starbucks cup in a Game of Thrones shot. But two, yeah, it's funny.
Like,
And I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world if they, leave a stray cup in the shot and like, yeah, your immersion's broken a little bit, but maybe that enhances the experience.
that's true.
And I do think that that's like it definitely comes down to personal preference, which is another kind of difficult thing because they only are able to distribute one kind of quote unquote official version at a time, basically, and so they kind of have to make that decision for you.
Mhm.
Um, versus if you own a physical copy, even if they release a new edition of it, like where they have changed some scenes, then you can still choose which copy you want to own, and that's kind of, I guess, another somewhat unexpected advantage of owning physical media, in my opinion.
Yeah. The, the scariest thing for me is honestly just the implications of it all and like what it could mean. Because if you're able to change things like that, like it just makes me think that people aren't going to be able to tell like what's real and what isn't. That's why AI is so scary. That's why so many people find it scary.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I think my response to like, because that is a very scary thought of like not knowing what's fabricated and what's not. And I think that is also another part, uh, like that's another thing that's driving people's kind of movement away from like digital media and social media and everything is because physical things are less easily fabricated, you know? And that's kind of been my solution to that existential question as well is like, okay, well, I'm just not going to engage with it because it can't affect my perception of reality if I don't experience it in the first place,
Mhm.
you know? And that's another reason why we were talking about earlier how I would like to see the return of like informing physical media or like informational physical media, like a newspaper that isn't just focused on like fluff pieces or whatever, like just a cut and dry kind of informational newspaper from the city of like, hey, here's what happened in the city this month, you know, like the events, the budget, the whatever, the legislation, stuff like that. Because then at least you would be able to, if something is wrong in that physical paper, at least you could then know who to hold accountable, you know, rather than, oh, it was AI hallucinating. Cool. I have nobody to hold accountable for that, and no way to stop this from happening.
That's just the hard thing with getting physical information, though, is having it readily available. Because that's what
Hmm.
makes things like Twitter, or I guess X, whatever, so
We, we
so
can call it
good,
Twitter.
right? Yeah, that's what people love about Twitter and like Reddit is that they get information right away. And the other end of it, right, is that you're not going to actually do more research. You see someone in their basement giving you information and you're like, okay, cool. I'm not gonna do any more information because this person sounds reliable. And that's where the problem is of like not doing however much more research you need to do to make an informed opinion on whatever it is.
Which I totally understand that because I'm in that position as well. Like, as much as I would like to be informed about everything, like, oftentimes having to troll through the internet to try and find information that's accurate about a certain topic, one, it's fucking depressing. And two, it's like just exhausting in general. And life is already exhausting enough as is, which is why, again, I like kind of push for a return to like physical media for a news source, is because if you aren't going to do more research about something you see online, you're not going to do more research about something you see in the paper. Um, but it's easier to hold them accountable. It's easier to kind of, there's more opportunities to put in safeguards to make sure that the information is accurate and informative rather than on social media because a lot of it is unregulated and there's not really much of a way to regulate it either.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to it. For me personally, it's like embarrassing to be like, yeah, I get my information from Instagram and TikTok, but it's also like,
I agree. That's very embarrassing for
okay.
you.
Anyway, um, I just think I don't know how else, but it's just the easiest way to get information, and it's just people. A lot of the time, it's people that I like watch that do this kind of stuff for a living. They just research and inform people. But of course, it's not always true. You got to think of where the source is, like where their information comes from,
Mhm.
like a lot of other things involved with that. So for me, I should not be watching people and being like, okay, one video, that's all I need, and then keep scrolling.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I also don't pay attention to the news. Like, there's a lot of things that come up on my For You page that definitely do try and incite some kind of emotion in me. And immediately I'm like, nope, don't want to see it. I can't. And
Yeah.
that's equally as bad because you shouldn't be uninformed. Like, you should continue to do research and um you should continue to do research for everything. And there's a lot of things in the world right now that you should do because it's important. And it's like literally, your life that you got to research for and make informed decisions about, you know?
Yeah. And I do definitely agree with you. And that kind of is, I think, part of the difficulty of because we live in troubling times. Shit's hard right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. A lot of it's bad. And I think that's part of the reason why people don't look into things more because it's depressing most of the
Yeah.
time to like do more research into a topic because most of the time the things you'll find are not going to be very positive.
Mhm.
So I definitely because I do that as well. Of like, if I see something that tries to elicit an emotional response from me, I'm like, nope, get that out of my face. Because I'm having an okay day. I don't want that ruined right
Yeah.
now. And that is bad. I agree that like you should be informed, and that's the kind of constant like balancing act of staying informed versus actually protecting your kind of mental health about it. Because if you're too stressed out to do anything, cool, you know about all the problems in the world. You're not gonna like you still aren't gonna do anything about it, you know? I don't know. A friend of mine said something quite nice, which is that if somebody just picks like one thing that they have an issue with and just sticks with it and like just keeps beating down that brick wall to try and get it changed, um, then the world will be a much better place than everybody running around trying to fix everything all at once. And I maybe that's me coping with my like with me being not very informed, but yeah, like I've picked my one thing, which is like urban planning because that is an issue and that's a field that can fix quite a lot of issues actually. But I've picked my one thing and I'm going to stick with it and hope that I can make enough of a difference to where it'll all be worth it.
Right. I completely understand what you're saying. I think the hard thing for me is whenever I see something that I should do and that I believe in, like a protest, right? Is I just feel so immobilized. I'm like, I should go and fight the good fight with these other people that also want the same thing. And I'm like, well, I cannot get my ass out of bed. And I'm
Mhm.
like stuck in this really toxic loop of like being on TikTok, you know, researching
Yeah.
and then like being like, all right, well, I don't have to do anything because I know stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think inaction is, I don't know what the right words for it is. It's just hard to overcome taking action because it's just very like flipping a switch, right? And I think a lot of us don't want to like look in the mirror and do that,
Mhm.
you know.
I mean, I think that is also like another issue I have with social media is that like I don't think part of me is very confident in the fact that I don't think we're meant to be able to have all of this information all the time. Like even if you can handle it, it's not good for you. Like I think that part of the reason why it was maybe easier to organize protests in the past, like in the 90s, 80s, before, um, is that because everybody's attention isn't split on like the 15 different things that are happening in the world, you can just focus on, again, just focus on one issue and then actually try to get real change done on that one issue. And all you're thinking about is just that one thing, and that lets you actually be able to gather enough energy to get out of bed and go and join the protest.
Mhm.
Um, because yeah, I think if I was still like obsessively scrolling through TikTok like every day, just going down that negative spiral, then I probably wouldn't be able to attend any of the protests that are happening literally like blocks away from my house. Um, and I think that because I'm not, I am way more open to actually doing that. Even though I never thought of myself as a person who would like go to protests, but I have.
All right. Let it. Let's crank up the cards and see what else we got in that brain of yours.
Sure.
All right. What was the highlight of your day today?
Taking a nap after work.
Real. To be fair though, I almost did that.
Yeah.
I just went home and watched a movie and turned off my brain for an hour and a half.
Yeah. I mean, I spent most of the time in between work and here just sleeping.
Fair.
Yeah.
It wasn't a particularly hard day though, so I'm very happy about that.
hmm
Okay. What's a little thing other people do that always means a lot to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Hmm. I don't know. I'm a big fan of compliments or compliments. I'm a big fan of strangers giving each other compliments. It's something I try to do at work, and it's something that means a lot to me when other people do when I'm out and about.
Yeah, that's fair. I should probably do that more.
I've made it like a habit of whenever I'm at work and I see like a customer or something with literally any interesting piece of their outfit, I try to compliment them on it.
I think I do that for the most part, unless you're like our coworker that commented. I should tell this
Uh-oh.
story. So,
Wait, is said coworker gonna hear this?
probably.
All right, cool. That's what I love to hear. Talk shit about our coworkers on your podcast.
Yeah, because they're gonna listen to it. They're the only ones that are gonna listen to it. So this coworker was cashing out this customer, and they were wearing like a graphic tee, but it said like pro life right here, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
it was in a style of like one of your traditional, like American traditional tattoo kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, I like your shirt," and then I was like, after she said that, and when the customer was cashed out and gone, I was like, I don't think, or I was like, why did you comment on that guy's shirt? And she's like, oh, I think he was wearing it ironically. I was like, thanks.
That's
Because
funny.
anyone in this day and age that is going to wear something like that, they're not going to wear it ironically. They're gonna wear it because they agree with that.
Yeah.
Like I would never wear something I don't agree with,
Yeah.
ironically.
Yeah.
And then I brought up like, the Virginity Rocks thing. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's a brand, but
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah. I was like my brother had that on his car and I don't think it was ironic. And she was like, "Oh, I think it's ironic." I was like, "No, I don't think it is."
God damn, outing your brother like that. That's funny.
Yeah. In any case, well, I actually don't know about my brother. He does not talk about his relationships, period.
I mean, yeah, fair.
But going on with that, there was another customer that came in that was wearing a t-shirt, or I guess a crew neck, that said radically feminist.
Right.
And I was like, sir, are you wearing that ironically? He's like, no, I
You
am.
actually asked him this?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Because our coworker was there, and I was like,
Yeah, I remember this conversation.
yeah, you were there. I was telling him the story
Uh-huh.
of what I just told you, and he's like, "No, I fully support women like fighting.
I mean, good for
They
him,
gotta fight,
honestly.
fight." Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't. The point was, I don't think people wear that shit ironically.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I agree with you. That like, I think also because of how polarized the political scene is currently, there's not really much room to wear that sort of thing ironically, you
I
know?
agree.
Like,
And we have another, I guess, colleague, not really a coworker, that wears the "Let's Go Brandon"
mhm.
hat, and I know for sure he does not wear that,
Yep,
ironically,
yep.
and that just kind of again goes to show like I think people take what you wear at face value, and if you're gonna wear pro-life, then I think that's what you believe in. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna go up to you and be like, "So you're wearing that ironically, obviously," you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think appearances have always been important. And I think that's not any less true nowadays.
Mhm. And I think we work at a donut shop too. Like, no one goes in with an agenda. People just want to eat donuts.
Yeah, it's just donuts, man. That's been my motto for the entire time at that job is it's just
Everyone,
donuts, man.
everyone that works there is like, guys, it's not this serious. It's just donuts.
Yeah. Which I love that attitude. It's my favorite thing.
I wish I could have that attitude. Some of the customers just take it so seriously. You know, like getting their gluten-free donuts is just life or death, and it's like,
Read the next card. We're not here to talk shit about work.
no, you're so right. We should not talk about work in our off hours when we're not getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. Do that shit on the clock.
What's a habit or routine you'd like to get into?
Ooh. Oh, reading before bed. Or just doing anything for like an hour before bed, do something that requires no screens. Because I've had a history with insomnia, and it was really, really bad at one point. And I definitely think that trying to fix my sleep hygiene has helped it a lot. Obviously not 100% because I still struggle with it sometimes. But yeah, I don't use my phone for an hour before bed. And I really should start actually doing something in that time, instead of just twiddling my thumbs and not doing anything.
That's funny.
So like whether it's like a craft or something, because I do embroideries. So maybe like embroidering before bed.
I did not know that about you.
Really.
Mhm.
I have a jacket, so I embroider patches mostly. Like I just make a sketch of something cool and then I embroider like a denim patch and I have a denim jacket that I sew them onto.
Okay, that's cool.
So I'll wear that jacket sometime. Next time we work together, I'll try to wear it.
If you remember.
I will, because I also need to show one of our other coworkers the jacket, our newest hire. But
Okay.
enough about work.
Yeah. Okay, so if they made a movie about your life, what would one of the high points be?
Holy shit. That's a good question. Um,
Maybe the high
hmm.
point hasn't happened yet. You have very exciting stuff going on in the very near future.
I would say, yeah, it would be either meeting my boyfriend and like spending time with him. Probably one of those moments would be a high point as well. But yeah, I think because I'm planning on moving to Europe soon. I think the movie should cover that.
What's something you find embarrassing?
Can I get a category?
I don't know. This is what the card
Something I
says.
find embarrassing for like 400, please. Um, um, so many things I find embarrassing. When I don't know, I always get secondhand embarrassment when people like get way too loud and can't read the room. Like, I think that's the thing I find the most embarrassing. Is like when somebody just cannot read the room.
That's fair. That could not be me though. I'm too quiet
Yeah,
for that.
yeah. Like half the time that you speak, I have to be like, huh.
So does everyone else. And I'm like, dog, there's like no one here. It is anyway.
Everybody has hearing damage because of the AirPods. Okay.
Okay. What's something that took you a long time to learn or understand?
Hmm. That I'm not responsible for the way other people react to my actions.
Fair.
That's something that took me a long time to understand, and I'm very happy that I learned that lesson.
Hmm. That's something that I think about all the time, every
Mhm.
day, is like I
Mhm.
can control so many things in my life, but I also am such a people pleaser in a lot of ways. And I'm like, why am I letting this person dictate how I feel? You know?
Yeah, I'm also like I'm a very anxious person, and I always have been. And so I overanalyze like every social situation of like, did I fuck that up? Did I say something wrong? Do they hate me? Like all that shit. And it's been a very useful reminder of like, okay, well, if they have a problem with XYZ, it's their responsibility to tell me.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, and it's I think for anxious people everywhere. Oops, sorry. Anxious people everywhere. Very important lesson to learn. And the sooner you learn it, the more of your nerves you will save.
So true. I'm just still so anxious as a person as well.
Yeah, it's something definitely I'm still working on, but I have gotten way better about it over the past like 3 years.
If money were no concern, what would you want to do with your life?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Um, I think for the first little while, I would want to just travel around the world and draw because I dropped out of art school, and I still love drawing, but I haven't had the time for it recently. Um, so I would travel to cities across Europe, cities across Southeast Asia, and just stay there and draw their architecture. That's what I would do. And then am I allowed to spend this money only on me or on other people as well?
I mean, I guess if money's no concern,
Yeah,
yeah.
then I could just throw money at everything. I think I would just start picking one thing at a time and solving problems. I think afterwards I'd be like, okay, well, this gets solved, this gets solved, this gets solved.
Real.
And then I think my biggest battle after that would be corruption. Uh,
Yeah. Corruption.
so I got big plans if money is no concern.
So true. All right, we'll do one more.
Okay.
What are you pretty sure you could never get tired of?
Ooh, pretty sure I could never get tired of music. Music has always been like a big part of my life. And I don't see myself ever getting tired of it. Like, obviously, I'll get tired of songs and albums and artists, but I think music in general will always be an integral part of my life.
I like that.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's all I have for you. Is there anything else you want to leave our guests with?
Hmm. Nope. Have
Okay.
fun and don't get too stressed out because you're no good to anyone if you're just stressed out and can't do anything.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast with me and yapping for I don't know how long it's been.
Mm-hmm.
So, and thank you everyone for watching. I will see you in the next episode.